zero carbon homes, showing what can be done through legislation on emissions to see the sort of building standards in place in Britain that we need for the long term. And it also means the new national policy statements, it means the new IPC, in other words, the new system for taking some of the big decisions on big infrastructure investments that the country needs. That the country needs to meet our UK environmental targets, but also that the UK needs to meet our energy requirements and our economic requirements for the future. At a regional level, the regional spatial strategies are, well, I've always seen these, I have to say, in part, as a way of trying to mediate the needs of the nation with the needs of local areas and their communities. And having dealt with this for a couple of years as local government minister, I know how tricky this territory is. I know that, but I also know that it is an indispensable level of planning and policy decision taking, because it helps to tackle the broader environmental and economic questions, so that, for instance, the question of carbon pumped out through driving long distances to work can be included in consideration of how to develop and where to place new communities and new housing. And then at a local level, local development plans obviously have a good understanding, drawn from local knowledge, drawn from local evidence, drawn from local expertise about the potential and the problems in the areas that you face. So whether an area could, for instance, support microgeneration or provide renewable energy from sun or wind. And we know that many of these issues that face local areas are obviously different in different areas. One of the things that today's climate change projections will raise in Norfolk, for instance, are questions about coastal erosion, how to deal with that. Now, I start from the principle that I want to see local areas as free as possible to make decisions about their own areas. But of course, national government also has a role to play and will step in, particularly when there's a problem or there's a need for a framework within which to take such decisions. So that's why we'll be consulting shortly on a new planning policy for coastal erosion. And we'll also look to improve implementation of the policies in EPS 25 on development and on flooding. And of course, these three levels of action, national, regional, local, are really part of one system, and it's you, the experts in the field, that make the whole thing work. And I have to say, Martin, it's initiatives like the RTPI 7 commitments that I think show how seriously that you as a planning sector are taking this challenge, and I frankly would like to see other organisations do more to follow your lead. I saw some interesting research. I think it was only yesterday, but it could have been earlier this morning. But I saw some interesting research which shows that they had sent for a meeting called by the Prime Minister because he's going off to Europe. It was the National Economic Council. The sort of civil service has got used to this, but the new cabinet is still getting used to the fact that what was a meeting scheduled for 9:30 suddenly it's 7:30 in the morning. It was interesting research that showed the environmental sector now employs more people and more professionals than the polluting industries of mining, cement making, electricity production. And I think this is one really good example of how the new green industries, or the green collar jobs, if you like, can help us get through this economic downturn, can be part of the economic story and success for this country for the future. And I think it's also a good example of how, with good evidence and a clear vision, we can balance and we can bring together what are traditionally seen as the conflicting interests of economic success on one hand and environmental concern on the other.